Berry didn't sleep in, he ain't missed work, he just handling some other duties. So I'll sit in his chair today. I was gonna wear like a Matthew Berry shirt or a Matthew Berry costume, because but they definitely got those Matthew Berry costumes at Party City. So I was thinking about it.
Can't imagine anything more terrifying for Halloween.
Yes.
Matthew Berry.
And we got Halloween coming up, so I had to do it.
Scare your kids.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. It is Love-Hate Day, and there it goes. Matthew Berry right next to me here.
Yeah, I drink free because I'm reclaiming my show. I am back. Sorry, Lawrence. Yeah.
What were the odds on the return?
What?
What were the odds on a comeback?
It was pretty short, but not off the board.
Yes.
You never know sometimes.
Yes.
You never
Sometimes
know.
you never come back from Boston.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's still better odds on DeMar Hamlin becoming a comeback player.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What would a Matthew Berry costume look like for Halloween?
I was
like what comes in the kit?
I have to assume basically a bald cap. I think there you go.
Oh.
There, it's probably that.
Man.
Exactly. Old but still has value. don't ask about East
Adam
Lansing.
Thielen or Matthew
We'll
Berry?
do incredible things for free popcorn. Fluent in French with an asterisk. That's amazing.
That's
also
not
has a
bad.
Michelle Pfeiffer hall pass.
Yes, maybe.
That comes with it. You get a little hall pass with Michelle Pfeiffer's name on it.
Keep in your wallet.
Good to see Stephen had a lot of time on the train in this morning.
Yeah, a little bit too much time for him.
So after the Braves are out of the playoffs,
Yeah,
he
goes to Photoshop.
His Jaguars on tonight against the Saints. We'll talk about that later in the show. But I would assume it's a bald cap and a blazer, and maybe like a calculator and a fake mobile phone.
Because you're so good at math.
I'm so good at
couple
math.
sheets of paper.
Well, that's why I need a calculator. That's true. Every once in a while I'll do it in my head. But there's probably a phone. Actually, probably two phones, given that. Yeah, exactly.
Like a photo of Logan Thomas as well.
a fake diet soda and a koozie.
Yeah, fake diet soda and a koozie, like basket of chicken fingers, free popcorn. Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty good value for all that. All that in one costume?
I'm just saying. What do you think about that? Probably some Taylor Swift bracelets. Yeah.
When people say your name, the first thing that pops into my head is diet soda.
Is it?
Yeah.
For me, it's
That's what it is?
That's what I most associate with you, not football, diet soda.
All right. This
well,
is not diet soda.
Let's jump into
I
some
drink
of the football.
free today, my friends.
He does drink
My
free.
show. Sorry, Lawrence.
It's week 7, so love-hate. Before we get there, though.
Oh, you know where else I drink free? Oh yeah, let's go to the Rotoworld headline.
Because I
got a Rotoworld headline for you. This is very important. Come back on screen for a second, then we're going to go back to these injuries we're tracking, Stephen. Come back on screen.
You can wait, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. We'll come back to that.
back.
Hang on.
Yeah.
It's very important. Biggest headline, I think, of the day. We are going somewhere, not you, but we are going to be live in Philadelphia. If you are in the Philadelphia area, in the greater Philadelphia area, and you would like to see us in person, you can do so this Sunday. Fantasy football pregame live from an actual Applebee's. It's the one in Philadelphia on Roosevelt Boulevard. Doors open at 10:30. We will be there starting at 11 a.m. The show goes on at 11 all the way up into kickoff. Get your questions answered live. You see it right there on your screen. 9142 Roosevelt Boulevard in Philadelphia. Doors open at 10:30. Fantasy football pregame. Me, Jay Croucher, Michael Smith, and yes, Lawrence Jackson will all be in attendance. Come for the riblets. Stay for the fantasy and betting advice. We'll get you set for week number 7. Jay has promised to take photos with you and not have a disdained look on his face. Anyway.
What does someone get if they show up in the Matthew Berry Halloween costume? There's got to be some kind of prize, even if it's just an appetizer.
Yeah. They eat for free. They eat and drink for free if they show up in a Matthew Berry costume to the Applebee's on Roosevelt Boulevard this Sunday. Anyway, so by the way, an admission is free. I mean, it's an Applebee's. You come in, you order, and if you're dressed as me,
you get an extra
eat for free. You get
That would be so
all the chicken fingers you
strange
want.
and confusing if someone came in dressed as Matthew Berry.
The cover charge would be even more confusing as well.
Exactly.
$20 to get to Applebee's today. Matthew Berry is here for the fantasy football pregame.
Well, hang on, but what if they come dressed? What if they come dressed as Jay? You know what I mean? Whatever, just some WNBA jersey, but not like a good one. like clearly like off the rack, like
Like a
discount.
team that lost.
Yeah, exactly.
night.
Like clearly, like this was like at the discount rack at some, some off-brand store. There's that, and then I guess probably like holding like a boomerang and some Vegemite, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
That's
playing
typically
the
what I
character.
walk around with at all times.
People say that Jay
Right.
throwing boomerangs around the NBC office.
with like a parlay calculator around your neck, but like it's calculated, but it's a parlay odds calculator,
just specific
and
to
you wear it
that.
around your neck like Flavor Flav.
Didn't know they made them.
Yeah, they
Interesting.
do.
All right.
All right, let's get into the notable injuries we're tracking.
All right, now we can go to the full.
Somehow we got
there
here
we go.
a couple of DMPs. Jimmy Garoppolo and Deshaun Watson are the quarterbacks that did not practice. Roshan Johnson and Devontae Smith also did not practice. One note on Devontae Smith, that's an estimate as the Eagles had a walkthrough, so keep an eye on that one throughout the week. Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyler Murray, Aaron Jones, and Tyler Lockett all limited. Diontae Johnson, he is working his way back. He practiced in full. That's a great sign for him. Baker Mayfield dealing with the hand injury. He practiced in full as well. But I think we start at the top there, Matthew, where it's trending that Jimmy won't play this week. We don't know if it'd be Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell. And then Deshaun Watson, kind of concerning in a situation where he didn't sound too confident that the shoulder's going to get right.
Although I'm just looking this up, I thought I saw something that something just as I was walking to the studio, I thought something popped up that said that he was gonna practice today. So I want to look at that. But the fact that it's still been this whole long time without Deshaun Watson certainly concerns you. And I think some of the reports that I've read is that like even if he's not going to be 100% until the offseason, we can get that shoulder surgery. And so, it's either him at less than 100% or P.J. Walker for this weekend's game at Indianapolis. None of it's ideal. Although I will say this, I think that for the extent that we care about it in fantasy football, obviously, if you have Deshaun Watson, there's a chance you're going to need to pivot to some, whatever solution you had last week or something else. But it's clear that Amari Cooper is sort of quarterback proof. Like he put up huge numbers against San Francisco with P.J. Walker. Like you're starting Amari Cooper every week, no matter what. We like Jerome Ford. And I do think that Kareem Hunt, if Deshaun Watson's limited or P.J. Walker's under center, you could see a little bit more emphasis on the run game as we saw last week. So both Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt in a week in which 6 teams are on a bye and there's a lot of running backs banged up, that Jerome Ford's an RB2 and Kareem Hunt is a hope for some receptions flex this week as well. The other ones, a couple other interesting ones on that list real quickly for me. Dalton Kincaid cleared the concussion protocol. Worth noting about that, seeing if he was dropped in your league. I've seen him dropped actually in a couple of leagues. Worth grabbing as well. We expect Diontae Johnson back for the Steelers out of the bye, which is great. And Kyler Murray returning to the field for practice. I don't know that he's going to play this weekend. My expectation is going to be Josh Dobbs against the Seahawks this week. Yep. But I think Kyler Murray is going to be back sooner rather than later. Guys, he's available in over 70% of Yahoo leagues, over 80% of ESPN leagues. Like, I did a check this morning. I'm like, wait, what? Now, of course, he's not available in any league I'm in, but he's available in like other leagues apparently, and I don't know why you wouldn't go out and grab him and stash him.
That seems insane. I mean, he'll be a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way. And the concern was that maybe he would just sit the season, but he's practicing, so he's not doing that. So he will be back. And look, we've seen what Josh Dobbs has been able to do in that offense, and Kyler Murray is better than Josh Dobbs.
There you go. Bold take, but I agree with it.
Let's look at tonight's injuries for Thursday Night Football. Most of them on the Jacksonville side. Trevor Lawrence is questionable with that knee injury. Zay Jones has been ruled out. And then Jamaal Williams with the hamstring, he's been on IR. His status is questionable. We think it's leaning on the side of him coming back, though, right?
NFL Network reporting earlier today that the expectation is that Williams will be activated off the IR. You see it there from Ian Rappaport, the tweet reading, "This will help, hashtag Saints starting running back Jamaal Williams." I'm not sure he's really the starting running back, but okay. Still on injured reserve with a hamstring injury, is expected to be activated. Will play tonight versus the Jaguars, sources say. Again, I would venture that Alvin Kamara is the starting running back of the Saints, despite what Ian is tweeting there. But he is helpful for. I can't imagine starting him. Like I want to see it first. Again, all due respect to the tweet, Kamara is the starting running back on the New Orleans Saints, and we don't know what the split will be between Jamaal Williams and Kendre Miller. Like, does Jamaal Williams go right back to like the goal line roll and the short stuff? For me, it's a hey, that's great, that's cool if he's been dropped in your league because there's a chance that he could have a significant role, but not anyone I want to start tonight unless I was truly desperate.
We'll get to the game later, but like a quiet thing that's gone under the radar, because I don't think anyone watches Saints games because they haven't been in any exciting games really, but Alvin Kamara's looked the best he's looked in a while, and he's getting an insane amount of targets.
Correct.
And also an insane amount of carries. So I don't think Jamaal Williams coming back off of injury on a Thursday night changes Kamara's role substantially. So he's clearly the guy that you want in New Orleans. Just quickly, Deshaun Watson. So Amari Cooper says that Deshaun Watson will practice. The line is bumped up to Browns -3, so it's trending in the direction that he will play. Saints line is also bumped up.
So that's the source is Amari Cooper?
Well, yeah,
according
to Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
So it's not official, but that's what everyone has reported.
Per Amari Cooper.
And then the Saints line also is bumped up to -2.5. I was hanging around 1. So I don't think that means a ton for Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to go regardless. That's more just people think the Saints will win tonight, but that's just something to monitor too.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence apparently, quote, pushing to play. And again, we'll talk about this later, but so we'll see. That's going to be a true game time decision. One last piece of news that came in after you guys did the show yesterday, but Mecole Hardman. Your Mecole Hardman.
Formerly.
Connor, I know you loved it when the Jets signed him. You were pushing the Jets to grab him. You're like, this is going to be the move that's put them over the top.
100%.
Rodgers, Lazard, whatever. The offseason move that made the Jets this season was Mecole Hardman. I know that was a big take of yours all throughout the offseason. Well, he has been traded back to the Chiefs now.
Yeah, for quite the haul.
Quite the haul.
2025 swap of a 7th and 6th round pick.
There
So
you go.
Mecole Hardman back with the Chiefs. I mean, here's the thing with Mecole Hardman. He couldn't beat out an undrafted free agent for his role in Xavier Gibson with the Jets.
Right.
For the Chiefs, this is depth and maybe a part-time special teams player now.
I was shocked. Here's what I like. So I'm going through all my waivers in my leagues, and when you're in 17 leagues, what you sort of do is you just sort of set your waivers and you just hope you get whoever, and then at some point when you get a chance, you check who'd I get. Like, I'm not one of those. I don't have the time to, like, at 4:45 in the morning be like, all right, who's still available? Or I just don't have that time. So as I'm going through yesterday, checking sort of all the recent activity in my leagues and the transactions, like a number of people after this move happened picked up Mecole Hardman in my leagues, and I'm like, wait, what? Now I'm in some deeper leagues and some 16-team leagues, but I also saw him picked up in like some 12-teamers that I'm in, and I'm like, okay, I don't get this. Just because I get it on this level. Like if you just looked at surface numbers, he was wide receiver 32 on a points per game basis last year before he got hurt. But that's because he had 6 touchdowns on only 29 touches, like including 2 rushing touchdowns. Again, for his career, he averages 33 yards per game. Like he just got inflated by a couple of fluky touchdowns. To your point, he couldn't beat out an undrafted rookie. The Chiefs had no problem letting him go in the offseason. And maybe this is depth because they lost Justin Watson, but Mecole Hardman, good for the Chiefs to get a piece back that knows the system and
it costs
nothing, and they can give him some plays and some snaps. But like the idea that there's going to be any sort of consistent fantasy value here is bizarre to me.
Yeah, not only has he been beaten out by an undrafted, he's been beaten out by Randall Cobb as well. Like, it's not great for Mecole Hardman, and maybe he is the type of player where he is more dependent than most player types on having a superstar quarterback who can get him the ball, like Patrick Mahomes instead of Zach Wilson. But at the same time, he's never had 700 receiving yards in a season. The touchdowns are fluky, and I think this is more relevant from a football perspective than a fantasy perspective, because he's probably going to be a better option than Sky Moore at the moment for Patrick Mahomes, but he's not going to provide value.
Again, he can run those deep routes. He's really fast, and that's what Justin Watson was doing for the Chiefs. So it makes sense to like, hey, we need someone to help stretch the field and open things up for Mahomes. But in terms of for our purposes in fantasy football, he should remain on the waiver wire in all the leagues except the ones I'm in. You guys keep him in those leagues.
All right, let's get into love-hate.
Oh,
we got a
it's
lot to go
love-hate day.
through. It is love-hate day.
That's right.
You made
You know
it.
what I
You made it
love?
back.
You know what I love?
What do you love?
Being back. You know what I hate? Missing yesterday.
That's there we go.
There you
well
go.
done. Love-hate in a
100%.
nutshell. How about some
100%.
love-hate running backs here? And we will start with Josh Jacobs against the Bears. Obviously, for the Raiders offense right now, this is a pretty good-looking matchup for last year's NFL leading rusher.
It's an amazing matchup against the Bears. Chicago allows the 5th most fantasy points per game to running backs. They've allowed the most receiving yards to running backs. Jacobs leads all running backs with an 18% target share this season. That's why that's important as well. 3 straight games with 25 or more touches. He's just a massive workload in a great matchup against the Bears. He's my running back 3 this week, as you see it there on your screen in the little box, in case you couldn't read. We've highlighted it there just to be really helpful.
We're really trying to help out.
We're really trying to help out. So there you go. Josh Jacobs makes the love list significantly high. It'll be interesting to see because Devontae Adams keeps popping off, and feels like squeaky wheel gets the grease, kind of thing. So I feel like a 10 reception, 220-yard, 2 touchdown game for Devontae is coming. But Jacobs is going to get his.
It's a little weird that he hasn't had more than 3.6 yards per carry in any game this season. He hasn't topped that. But the thing is, one, amazing matchup against Chicago, and then two, he's had 35 targets this season. So even though he's not been efficient on the ground, supplemented with work through the air, and this is as good a matchup as it gets.
And with either a backup quarterback or a less than 100% Jimmy Garoppolo, they'll want to lean on the run game on the road.
Josh Jacobs comes in as RB3. Kenneth Walker right behind him as RB4. And Kenneth Walker and that Seattle offense have Arizona on deck. I mean, Arizona, same thing with Chicago. It's a fiesta for running backs against them this year.
It is a fiesta. Yeah,
so
I brought it back.
We had a one-day interlude without any Spanish or French, but good to see that we're back on the international bandwagon.
Sure.
The key
Bonjour.
thing, bonjour, à toi aussi. I think the key thing here is that the Seahawks are 7.5-point favorites, and so not only is it a favorable matchup, they're going to be in position where they can run the ball. Sneaky thing that's gone under the radar is Seattle's defense has been really good lately. They completely decimated the Giants. They really shut down the Bengals as well. So I think that they're going to be playing with the lead, and Pete Carroll loves to run the ball playing with the lead. So there'll be a lot of volume for Kenneth Walker and a lot of opportunities to hit the home run, which he's quite good at.
Look, it's a great matchup, as you mentioned, right? Arizona allows the third most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They're actually bottom 5 in the NFL in terms of most rushing yards and rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs. And the Ken Walker versus Zach Charbonnet running back by committee concerns that were in the preseason aren't there anymore, right? Kenneth Walker is getting the majority of the work for the Seattle Seahawks. He's getting a ton of work, and the reason that's important, because every starting running back to face the Cardinals this year has seen 20 or more touches, and they're averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. So Ken Walker, who's been flirting, he's in that area, 17, 18, 19 touches a game, should get at least 20 touches in a favorable game script at home, should have a big game against the Cards.
How about DeAndre Swift? He's got
him?
He's got the Dolphins here in a matchup where we're going to see a lot of offense. Obviously
on
not a
NBC.
Huge, on NBC.
And Peacock. Sunday night.
That's
Games
right.
in Philadelphia, where that morning we will be on Fantasy Football pregame live from an actual Applebee's on Roosevelt Boulevard.
And then they will transport you to be on Sunday Night Football.
Yes, they will.
Really
I wonder if it's just gonna be like a normal car, or if it's just gonna be like I wonder if it's like a big giant apple. Like the Mets have the bullpen car with a big apple, right?
Well, they also have the actual. You're saying the apple that rises up.
Right, that rises up at a Shea Stadium.
Yeah.
But I thought they also didn't have a car, or is it?
I don't believe they have a car.
I was
a
gonna
little
say,
cart.
Maybe
it was a Mr. Met. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
just run with it.
The fact of the matter is that would be very cool if Applebee's had like a big Apple car. That they could drive me
for Batman, but for Matthew Berry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She got the Berry Mobile going.
I shouldn't go.
That's something I
gotta call my agents. I gotta get on this.
Agents?
Agents. I have agents.
Oh,
I have a team.
Wow.
It takes a whole. You have no idea.
Yeah, I kind of do.
Because it's like
it's very believable.
Well, like none of them want to deal with me full time.
Yes.
So it's
a committee.
It's a committee.
True three-headed monster backfield.
Like the Philadelphia backfield.
Yes,
exactly.
like DeAndre Swift deals.
Exactly. Oh, we should get back to DeAndre Swift. That's a good point.
100%.
You are correct. So unlike my representation, DeAndre Swift can really do it all by himself. He's had 5 straight games with 17 or more touches in this Eagles backfield. Since week 2, he's averaging 18.9 fantasy points per game. You mentioned the target share with Josh Jacobs, Jay. That's also with DeAndre Swift. He's had an 18% target share over the last 3 weeks. They've started to involve him in the passing game as well. And that's important because the Dolphins allow the second most yards per reception to running backs this season. So Swift, who's touching the ball a ton in a high-scoring matchup, he's a top 8 play for me this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing him Sunday night on NBC and Peacock right here. I'm a company man.
Yep. Connor, you watched that game quite closely against the Jets where DeAndre Swift only had 10 carries for 18 yards on the ground.
Shocking.
Did you think that was more about the Jets' defense or more about the Eagles' offensive line struggling because it is banged up?
I think it was a little bit of the latter because the Jets, they have a great defense, but you can establish the run a little bit against them. And the Eagles said, we're going to drop back and throw, especially when Lane Johnson went down, which totally changes their run game. So I think it was partially looking at Quentin Williams in that front and saying, We're not going to get too crazy with this. We think we could throw on backup corners. No Sauce Gardner, no DJ Reed. That plan didn't work out for them. They'll get back to their roots and go to Swift against Miami.
Yep. Lane Johnson was estimated to not practice yesterday, but it seems like it's not a high ankle sprain. It's a low ankle sprain, or low-ish seems to be the word. So he's a chance to play, but it's not going to be a long-term absence either way.
A couple others receiving votes: Isaiah Pacheco, Jerome Ford. We talked about the Browns a little earlier. Zach Evans, who could finally see some action for the Rams, and Jaleel McLaughlin of the Broncos, Matthew.
Yeah, I want to focus here on, Ford we already talked about with Watson either not playing or banged up. He's averaging 15 touches in the 3 games as a starter. Indy has allowed the 3rd most rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs. Pacheco's averaging 20 touches a game. Chargers allow the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. Jaleel McLaughlin has 3 straight games with 9 or more touches. Packers allow the 4th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So all those great. But Zach Evans, I think, is really interesting because the expectation is he will lead the backfield for the Rams, with Kyren Williams and Ronnie Rivers both not expected to play against a Steelers defense that gives up the 5th most yards per carry to opposing running backs. However, when asked directly on the podium, it's like, hey, basically Sean McVay, I'm paraphrasing here, but when they asked Sean McVay, they're like, hey, Zach Evans, he's your guy, right? And Sean was like, well,
he threw cold water on it.
I mean, he definitely did not, he wasn't like, yeah, I really love Zach Evans. He was, more like, well, whatever. Like, we got Royce, we got Royce, and, it was great to see Hendo back,
He named every running back who's ever played for the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been talking with Eric Dickerson,
yes, 100%. Todd Gurley might be back there somewhere.
Exactly.
We didn't check the Sean McVay show, though.
No,
that's where you get the good nuggets.
Coach McVay mentioned Myles Gaskin as well. Here's what I would say. So I ranked him running back 23 this week, so I think he's a flex. And I do think that because there's 6 teams on a bye and we've got other running backs hurt, if you need to start a running back from the Rams, Zach Evans is your guy. I think he's got the best chance to have the opportunity. I personally think he's the most talented of the guys. He's been there, right? Having said that, I just want to be realistic here. They haven't used him all year. They've seen him in practice, and they haven't made any kind of effort to get him involved. Now, again, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? I mean, so he's the last man standing, so to speak. But you do have a veteran in Royce Freeman. Darrell Henderson does know the offense. I don't know. I just want to be clear here that I like Zach Evans with an asterisk, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Hey, Barry, I need a guy that could potentially get 15 touches. That's Zach Evans. But just understand the risk that there's also a chance he gets 5.
Yep. And look, there is a lot of upside because the Steelers have a bottom 5 rushing defense.
Correct.
They've not been good against the run. And the Rams are favored in this game. We'll be expecting to be able to run the ball. But it's just, The thing with McVay as well is that you can establish baselines for how coaches talk about different things.
Yes.
Pete Carroll, never trust him on injuries.
Correct.
Sean McVay, he was talking up Puka Nacua a ton in the preseason and now asking about different players. We got other guys.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect.
McVay is on the positive scale in terms of being fairly honest and open with the media. He's much more the other people that you're just I don't believe a word that you say.
Yep.
But McVay is closer to, is fairly obvious. Fairly truthful. So again, Zach will be out there. It's a great matchup. He's got a great opportunity, and I think if he starts hot, he'll keep the role. But I don't think it's a guarantee that he gets, Kyren Williams' workload here.
Yep.
Looking over at the running back hate list that is headlined by Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. Listen, we love Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss on this show, but we do not love any running backs that play the Browns defense, Matthew.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here. It's 6 teams are on a bye. I have Jonathan Taylor just inside my top 20. I have Zach Moss as a flex. I can't imagine you have the luxury of benching either one of these guys given how bad Buymageddon is. I just want to lower expectations here because to your point about the Browns defense, Connor, look, 6th fewest rushing yards allowed per game to running backs. The 2nd highest success rate against run plays this season. Through 5 games, they've allowed 1 rushing touchdown to an opposing running back. One. And you think about what happened last year with Zach Moss with his season lows in terms of touches and snap rate. It feels like there's going to be a changing of a guard, right? Last week it was 2 weeks ago, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor played 10 snaps. Then last week was a truly even split between Moss and Taylor. And so this week you figure it's probably maybe more closer to 70-30, but maybe it's 60-40. So you have 2 guys in a committee in a brutal matchup. Again, you probably have to start them because I can't imagine you have a better choice, but lower expectations.
Yep.
Look for your upside elsewhere.
Side note on this one, I think this might be your last chance to get Myles Garrett at plus 350 to win Defensive Player of the Year on DraftKings. He should be the favorite for this award, in my opinion. It was a weird thing where Micah Parsons, after that one sack against the Chargers, he went from plus 300 to plus 150. And I get it, it was a big moment. No one's going to remember that moment in 3 months come the end of the season.
Right.
Watt, Parsons, Garrett, all very close. To me, the tiebreak goes to who's on the best defense. Cleveland have the best defense in the NFL right now. And Garrett's going to have very strong sack numbers.
People are going to want to reward the Browns defense for their performance this year, and that's sort of a way to acknowledge the dominance of Cleveland's defense.
Yep.
Our next one here, Najee Harris. He's got the Rams. He comes in as RB29 for Matthew here, Jay. And when you look at Najee, I mean, he just hasn't been involved in the pass game for the Steelers this year. That's the biggest concern right now.
Yeah, my man Najee Harris, who
Stockholder.
I've attached my once good name to, for better or worse. Look, I think that this offense is just a complete stay away outside of the receivers. They just haven't been able to do anything. There's uncertainty about the split each week between Warren and Najee Harris, and you need the passing work when the offensive line is this bad and they can't get anything going on the ground. They're dogs in this game. I don't think they're going to be running the ball a ton. So I agree, Najee Harris probably not a massive win.
Out of the 56 qualified running backs in fantasy points per touch this season, Najee Harris is 53rd.
Okay, that's
that's not great. He's outside my top
better
25.
than a couple, though.
I have lower than Jaylen Warren, and it's not a good matchup against the Rams, who allow the sixth fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. By the way, if you do show up to the Applebee's dressed as Jay Croucher, we will also accept a Michael Thomas jersey or a Najee Harris jersey.
My two guys.
Yeah,
my boys.
That's fair. That's a fair, fair costume.
100%.
Our last one here, Alexander
Or
Mattison.
as Crocodile Dundee. Yeah. If you dress as Crocodile Dundee.
Those are the
Kangaroo
three.
Jack didn't make the cut
Or
this time?
Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kangaroo
Or
Jack.
Colin Hay from Men at Work.
Yeah, no one's going to know that one.
Good boy. Yeah. All right, one more running back, so we'll get through this together. Alexander Mattison comes in as a top 20 running back during Buymageddon for you, Matthew, but he's got the Niners, who we talk about in a similar light as the Browns in terms of the run defense impact.
Yeah, I mean, they're fantastic. The fifth fewest rushing yards per game to running backs. Only 2 running backs have scored 12 or more fantasy points against San Francisco this entire year. And in the last 2 weeks, Alexander Mattison has 70 rush yards on 26 carries. Like he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. He hasn't been good, but volume has gotten there. I don't know that he's going to be able to get that kind of volume against the Niners on Monday night. And I just, again, love-hate is all about expectations. And so because there's 6 teams on a bye, as you mentioned, he's my running back 18 this week, but that's only because of the lack of other options out there. Lower expectations for Mattison this week.
I mean, he's 18 for 44 against the Bears. I just don't think it's going to happen for Mattison this season. Yeah.
That's his stat line. Like when you think Alexander Mattison, you think
18
high,
for 44.
You think 1844, maybe 1432.
No touchdowns.
No touchdowns.
Fumble.
A catch for 4 yards.
Yeah,
that's how it's been.
one crucial drop on third down.
Oh
Been a
man,
tough year for Madison.
Been a tough year.
we are eating good in the neighborhood this Sunday with the fantasy football
one confused
pregame
look
show.
as somebody standing over Kirk Cousins having sacked him, and a coach like pointing at him like that was your blitz to pick up.
Oh man, for the fantasy football pregame show broadcast live from Applebee's in Philadelphia. The restaurant at 1942 Roosevelt Boulevard opens at 10:30 a.m. and pregame kicks off at 11. Come on out early in your costumes to start your tailgate party with us this Sunday and ask your sit-start questions ahead of the big Sunday night football matchup between the Dolphins and Eagles. And if you're not in Philly, you can still watch the show live on Peacock and on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. We're going to break. When we're back, Love-Hate continues with pass catchers and quarterbacks. It's Big Ten Saturday night. Number 2 ranked Michigan heads to Barry's favorite town to take on Michigan State. It's a battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Saturday on NBC and Peacock. Here comes Saturday night.
Throwing footballs with Tyreek and Raheem.
They can't throw with me, bro. They can't throw with me. I be telling them that I played quarterback in high school. Like, telling them watching my high school highlight tape. Like, they gonna see it accurate. I was warming up for real. Warming up, that's all. But they can't throw with me at all. Or run with me.
That was Jaylen Waddle on him being not only a better thrower than Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. I'm pretty sure he snuck in a little jab that they can't run with him either.
I think Tyreek Hill can.
I was going to say, I don't know about that one, but he definitely looked like he's the best thrower of them all. Jaylen Waddle tops the love list for pass catchers here, guys. And He's got the Eagles secondary that has been vulnerable this year. Waddle, we know what this Dolphins offense can do with all their playmakers, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, what's positive here is we all know about Tyreek Hill, but Jaylen Waddle, after a little bit of a slow start for him to the season, has a 33% target share over the last 2 weeks, 5 end zone targets over the stretch, including multiple red zone targets in both games. For you, those of you listening to this show instead of watching it, you missed the highlight of his touchdown last week where Tyreek Hill was wide open in the flat and Tua threw across his body into coverage to get the ball to Waddle. Waddle still came down with it and got the touchdown. But, they're making an effort to get the ball to Jaylen Waddle, not just Tyreek Hill. And you mentioned the matchup, Connor. Philadelphia's allowed the second most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this season. Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle should both eat on Sunday night. I have Waddle at wide receiver 7. He's a wide receiver 1 for me this week. You're already starting him, but this is a particularly good matchup for Jaylen.
Yep, and the sneaky thing with the Dolphins is that Tyreek Hill's not playing a ton of snaps. They are using him in bursts. He's not playing. He's not playing the Ja'Marr Chase 95% of the snaps kind of diet. He only played 25 snaps against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. So they are clearly, I think, because he broke down at the end of last season and just the way that he plays and that he's a smaller receiver, I think they want to manage him through the year, and Waddle should be the big beneficiary of that. Because people forget, Waddle was injured all preseason. He was injured to start the season. He was brought in slowly, and now it seems like he's full go, fully ramped up, 19 targets and 2 touchdowns the past 2 weeks.
Another wide receiver in the top 10 of Matthew's rankings this week, Jay, and he's on the love list as well. That's Brandon Aiyuk. Listen, potentially no Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. Even if we see them, you would imagine a limited capacity, and Aiyuk has the talent to carry an offense.
Yeah, definitely. I think Brock Purdy will bounce back. The Vikings blitz more than anyone else. I think that should play into Aiyuk's hands. Even last week, where that was the worst game of Brock Purdy's career, he still went 4 for 76 and had 10 targets, and he left yards on the table as well. Purdy missed him a couple of times. He had a drop too. So I think that Aiyuk, he's a locked-in top 10 wide receiver.
I would agree with you. Again, the opportunity is there given the health of the surrounding 49ers, but he's had at least 25% target share in every game he's played so far this season. Overall, it comes out to a 30% target share. Top 5 among wide receivers in yards per target so far this season, so he's getting a lot of targets, and then he's top 5 in terms of yards per target, which is all exciting. We've talked about the Vikings defense a lot over the season here. Wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against the Vikings, averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. And so, guy who's really good, getting a lot of targets against a team that when you get a lot of targets against, you score a lot of fantasy points. Bingo, bango, ipso facto. Brandon Aiyuk on the love list here. He's my wide receiver 10 this week.
I think weirdly as well, McCaffrey...
I didn't mean to use legal jargon there, but it is...
No, the point was conveyed.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Sorry if I was confusing.
McCaffrey's clearly the guy who is most resilient to whoever is supporting casters. McCaffrey's always going to eat. Aiyuk is the next guy because Deebo just kind of seems to be marginalized a little bit, and he's the one who recedes into the background a little bit more. Purdy has more of a connection with Aiyuk than anyone else on that offense.
100%.
We talked about Josh Jacobs making the love list because he's got the Bears this week. The same could be said for his teammate in Jakobi Meyers, who, when healthy, has been one of the more consistent wide receivers in fantasy, especially in PPR, Matthew.
He has, and I want to be clear here because we know Jacobs is going off, and I've already said I think this is a Devontae Adams squeaky wheel gets the grease game where they've got to make a way to get 17 the ball. Having said that, we've seen it earlier in the season when Adams has had these huge games. Jakobi Meyers continues to be a factor here. 4 out of the 5 games he's played this season, right? He's had 15 or more fantasy points. The Week 4 game with Aiden O'Connell starting, he had only 5.3 points. So let's watch to see the Garoppolo situation. I do feel like if Jimmy G is out, it'll be Hoyer.
I agree.
Just because O'Connell just really struggled. But at least a 22% target share in all 4 of those games. Bears tied with the 3rd most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. I think this Bears defense is bad enough. Again, this is all contingent on Garoppolo starting. But I think the Bears defense is bad enough that Jacobs, Adams, and Jakobi Meyers can all have very productive fantasy days.
Yeah, I think Chicago probably has the weakest secondary in football. I know statistically the Broncos have that mantle at the moment, but one that was skewed by the 70-20 game. And also Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons, they should be better. I think the Bears project the rest of the way as the weakest pass defense in the league. And so a top 2 wide receiver against that secondary is just the start of it.
Don't forget that even in the game in which they blew out my Commanders, right? Sam Howell was still able to move the ball very effectively through the air against them in comeback mode. And, they fell short, but the fact is whatever little success the Bears have had this year, it hasn't been on the defensive side of the ball.
Can you imagine, Matthew, if your Commanders had just won as 6-point favourites at home, they'd be 4-2, favourites to go 5-2 against the Giants this week. It's unbelievable.
No,
they'd be a game back in the division.
Yeah, no, I know, but of course, we were on national TV in a game we should win, so of course we got our asses kicked.
If Ron had just gone for 2 against the Eagles, you might be 5-1.
Yeah.
Super Bowl. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
With Sam Howell.
You're still rooting for losses? Last week you were rooting for losses.
know,
Now all of a sudden
they pulled you back in.
They pulled me back in a little bit. I don't know.
To
be honest, I don't. All right, I'm just be honest. I think there needs to be a change in leadership of the team. I never want to call for another man's job, but I don't think. I think Ron Rivera's taken the team as far as it can go, and so and I think that, and I don't think this is a Super Bowl team this year. So when you look at it through that lens, I don't want the team to be good enough that, Anyway, I'm hoping for a fresh start next year. I think the Chicago loss to me was unconscionable.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Let's bring in Ben Johnson next year.
That's going to be the hire. That's going to be the hire.
Make some calls.
I like it.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought
Start
about
that
that.
campaign.
Like that? Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't.
Be exciting, wouldn't it?
Maybe Ben Johnson, maybe Drake May somehow. Quarterback, head coach, new era.
Yeah. But I mean, future Hall of Famer. We're not going to have a good enough draft pick to get Drake May unless we mark more.
No, you'll win too many games.
We'll win too many games. But I still believe in Sam Howell.
Sure.
I think Sam Howell is a flawed prospect with but there's enough tendencies which was what, by the way, Jared Goff was. I understand Jared Goff went number 1 overall or whatever, was a number 1 pick, and Sam Howell was a 5th rounder. But I think both guys possess similar traits in that they both have big arms. There are skills there where you're like, that's a guy that can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then there's also things where you're just like, sort of scratch your head. And so it appears that they fix a lot of that with Jared Goff, and I think the same can be done with Sam Howell, who is, again, improve the offensive line, work with him on his timing and getting the ball out quicker, and I got something.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jared Goff, MVP candidate this year. What a world we live in.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway.
Our next one, Dallas Goedert against the Dolphins. We can't say it enough. We expect a lot of offense in this game, Jay. And when you look at Goedert, obviously a really slow start to the season, but the target share has been there since that slow start.
Yeah, it has been. Obviously, he went off in that game against the Rams. I think the refrain with Goedert has typically been that this team just runs the ball so much that it's hard to support 3 pass catches in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goedert. I think you throw that out the window against Miami. This is going to be a shootout. They're going to have to be throwing the ball, I think. The total is in the low 50s, and I think that Goedert will be able to eat.
Dolphins are bottom 10 in terms of receptions and yards allowed to tight ends this season. You can throw against them in that area of the field. And by the way, both tight ends who saw at least 7 targets against Miami this year scored 16 or more fantasy points. Darren Waller and Hunter Henry, both guys who have been inconsistent this year, but showed up against Miami as well. So since week 2, a 21% target share. Dallas Goedert's my tight end 5 this week. Obviously, you want as much of this game as you can get.
Yep.
A couple others receiving votes out of the pass catchers: Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, Drake London, Jackson, Smith-Njigba, as we showed you at the top of the show. Tyler Lockett was on the injury report. That was we'll see where that goes throughout the week. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jonnu Smith, and Luke Musgrave here, Matt.
Yeah, you see the ranks on your screen, obviously. Flowers is a top 20 guy, 28% target share over the last 4 games. Terry McLaurin of my Commanders. Giants have allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver in 5 straight. Double-digit targets for Terry in 2 of the last 3. Drake London, they're throwing it all of a sudden, and the Bucs allow the 7th most yards per game to wide receivers. He's my wide receiver 27 as well. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be a thing this year. I think it might be this year. 26% target share last week, 3 straight games with 5 or more receptions. You can obviously throw against my Commanders secondary, which struggles. JSN I want to bring up as well. I don't know that I'm at wide receiver 40 this week, but I think he's a stash if he's still available in your league. He had 72% of the snaps last week. Like, we talked about this. Like, it's coming, right? I mean, we all believe in the talent. We just need the opportunity there. And you're starting to see in the underlying numbers that the opportunity is going to be there for JSN. Jonnu Smith and Luke Musgrave, if you're looking for a couple of tight ends outside the top 10. Both of them have good matchups and good usage.
We discussed yesterday how low the bar is at tight end right now. These are the guys that still matter if you need a stream. For the hate list, it's topped by George Pickens against the Rams right now, Jay. When you look at this game, obviously the Rams are favored in this one, and it's not that Pickens is the problem. He's had a really nice breakout year. Kenny Pickett and the Steelers' offensive line has been kind of a low-key disaster.
Yeah, it's been a loud disaster
Loud
for
disaster,
mine.
too.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
terrible. But the other thing, too, is that Diontae Johnson looks like he will come back. Pat Freiermuth is going to come back. So all of a sudden, this was Pickens' offense,
Right.
which wasn't a great thing to begin with. But now he's going to be marginalized a bit. I mean, what do you think, Connor, of his role now that Diontae Johnson is likely back? Is his route tree just too simplified to provide a ton of value?
Well, I think the good thing is that Pickett is comfortable just throwing it up to him. And I think another good thing is Pickens' red zone usage shouldn't change at all. He should factor in there. I think it's the in-between the 20s that you start to worry about those touches because Diontae is so polished and gets open so easy, and the line can't protect, where they got to play quick game to Diontae. So, yes, this will matter.
Yep.
Look, it's not a great matchup against the Rams as well. 4th fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. The only game that Diontae Johnson played this week, week 1, to your point about his return, 15% target share. We think Kenny Pickett will be better out of the bye, but we don't know. It's been inconsistent so far. It's not like they can lean on the run game because of your boy Najee. Anyway, I have Pickens at wide receiver 31. There's always a chance he gets deep for one. Like he is one of those guys that only needs one big play, and he has the talent to make it, but don't have a ton of confidence in the offense or his role with Diontae Johnson back until I see it.
Our next one here, Jerry Jeudy against the Packers. And, this one, Matthew, for me, it's not just all about matchup. Jeudy has not turned into the guy we hoped he would be. He does not have many big games. This isn't a good passing offense. And you hear his name thrown around in trade rumors, but you don't even really get that excited because he hasn't broken out yet.
I mean, okay, Steve Smith.
Yeah,
but like, spot the lie. Spot the lie. Forget touchdowns. He has 0 end zone targets this season. Like, Russ isn't even looking for him when they get in close. I mean, again, we talk about this. Targets are earned, and when he's gotten in the end zone, he has not been able to earn a target, not even one target this year. He's been under 55 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year. Packers, tough defense, 5th fewest receiving yards per game allowed to opposing wide receivers. So, yeah, even in a week in which 6 teams are on a bye, Jerry Jeudy outside my top 30 this week.
Our last one here, our second to last one here, Gabe Davis. He's our last receiver. He has the Patriots. The thing with Gabe Davis right now, Matthew, and this is often the story with him, is just targets. Stephon Diggs has been the entire offense every single week, and with Gabe Davis, it's usually the inconsistencies of it.
Yeah, he is touchdown dependent. He's the definition of a touchdown dependent wide receiver. Now, he had like a stretch there. We've scored in 4 straight, so it's like you were loving it. But if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's averaging 4.3 fantasy points per game when he doesn't score a touchdown. So that's my question, is how lucky do you feel? If you think Gabe Davis gets into the end zone this week, you should start him. But if you don't, because he's had 4 fewer targets in 3 of the past 4 games, to your point about target share here, Connor, then probably should be on your bench. Worth noting that in the 2 games against the Patriots last year, and obviously the Patriots defense is much worse than it was last year, but still, just 54 combined yards in 2 games against New England last season. He's my wide receiver 41 this year. It's a game in which the Bills are heavily favored. I just don't think they're going to be throwing a ton. And so, again, to your less in volume, it literally is, he's a touchdown-dependent flex.
Yep. Just one thing on Gabe Davis and the Bills. There's a lot of alarm bells ringing because they only had 2 scoring drives against the Giants' defense. I'm kind of throwing that out just because they traveled 16 hours on a plane in the space of a week. They played a 9 a.m. Eastern game in London and then a night game on Sunday against the Giants the week after. I think they were just off kilter, and I think that they will bounce back. They had a lot of turnovers and stuff. I think we'll see a bounce back from a lot of Bills this week.
Fair enough.
Jay, our last pass catcher, we talked about him a little bit yesterday in Tyler Higbee against the Steelers. And listen, it's once again a low bar to clear for tight ends right now. But since Cooper Kupp has been back, Tyler Higbee's been forgotten in these last 2 games.
He has, and Kupp is obviously, he's the alpha and omega of that offense. I do think that he will see more work going forward. Now, this isn't a fantastic matchup against the Steelers, but they just never had the ball against the Eagles, and Stafford never had to throw against the Cardinals. So let's see the sample this week of Nakua, Kupp, and Higbee in maybe a more normal kind of game.
In the 2 games since Cooper Kupp returned, just 6 targets, to your point about that. Steelers allow the 6th lowest catch rate to opposing tight ends. He's my tight end 18 this week.
As we move to the quarterbacks, we cannot talk about Sunday Night Football enough with the Eagles and the Dolphins, and that's why Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew, leads the love list out of our quarterbacks.
This over-under is 52. Teams facing the Eagles average 39 pass attempts per game. That's 4th most in the NFL. Tua leads all quarterbacks in yards per pass attempt this season. So getting a lot of pass attempts, where he has a lot of yards per pass attempt. Bingo, bango, ipso facto. Eagles allow passing touchdowns, by the way, also at the 7th highest rate in the NFL. He's my third QB this week, QB3.
Jay, Geno Smith hasn't been the fantasy impact quarterback he was last year, but Arizona this week, they've kind of come back to reality as well, and we think this is a Seattle offense that will get throwing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think Geno is playing well. He's just not getting the end product.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that the Cardinals have the third worst pass defense in the NFL right now. That might be trending down as well. I think that Geno has a much better chance of throwing touchdown passes this week than in weeks previous.
Yeah, and they have the third highest implied team total. We expect, again, they're home favorites in this one. Cardinals allow the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. I think Geno gets back on track. He's my QB7.
Matthew, both Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel banged up, but Brock Purdy still ranked as a top 10 quarterback against the Vikings this week.
Yeah, I mean, with those two guys either less than 100% or not playing, it's going to rest more on the arm of Brock Purdy. He still has Brandon Aiyuk. He still has George Kittle. He still gets the Vikings secondary, which is bottom 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. They allow the third higher passer rating to quarterbacks. And by the way, the Vikings lead the NFL in blitz rate. Why does that matter? Because Brock Purdy is tied for the 4th most touchdown passes when blitzed. The Vikings like to blitz a lot. Purdy is good against the blitz. I have him as a top 10 fantasy quarterback this week. Yes, sure, sir.
Brian
I was going to say for sure, and then yes, sir, and it got all mixed up there, and I don't know. I'm confused like the Vikings defense will be when they you know what this is? I just realized this. We're in Brocktober.
We are.
We're in Brocktober.
Which is what makes the Browns' performance so amazing, that they're able to do that in Brocktober as opposed to September or November.
Right.
A couple others receiving votes, Jordan
I
Love,
apologize, America.
Sam Howell, and Josh Dobbs against that Seattle defense that's getting better.
Love makes the love list, and others receiving votes is my QB9. It's the Broncos. They allow passing touchdowns at the highest rate. They're allowing the most yards per pass attempts. They've had 2 weeks, the Packers have, to prepare for this game. Hopefully everyone is healthy. Jones is back. Watson's fully healthy. Musgrave off the concussion list. I like Jordan Love. Future Hall of Famer Sam Howell is a top 12 play for me this week. Over the past 4 weeks, Giants allow passing touchdowns at the 6th highest rate. Their secondary's beat up. I think the Giants will be able to move the ball against the Commanders. So over the last 3 weeks, over 21 fantasy points per game for Sam Howell. And Josh Dobbs, again, as he's sort of biding time until Kyler Murray comes back. These 40 rushing yards in 4 of the last 5 games. Seahawks allow the 5th most passing yards per game. They're heavy underdogs. The Cardinals are. They're going to have to be throwing.
Moving over to the hate list, topped by Kirk Cousins against the 49ers. Jay, listen to this. 4 of the 6 quarterbacks to face San Francisco have scored single-digit fantasy points this season. No Justin Jefferson doesn't make you feel any better about this.
Yep, top 3 defense in San Francisco. I think it's a massive red flag as well that Cousins just didn't do anything against the Chicago secondary in the first game without Justin Jefferson. So this is as bad a matchup as it gets, Matthew.
Only 1 team in the NFL only 2 teams in the NFL allow fewer fantasy points to quarterbacks than the Niners as well. They actually have twice as many interceptions as touchdown passes.
That's wild.
So yeah,
1 to 2
even in a week with 6 teams on a bye, Kirk is outside my top 12. Also not crazy about Trevor Lawrence tonight. We're going to talk about the game coming up, but I will just say that whether Trevor Lawrence is active tonight or it's CJ Beathard, whoever the quarterback of the Jaguars is, you don't want any part of the Saints defense here.
Yep, also short week, and they just recently had 2 weeks in London as well. Travel, all that kind of stuff does not work well for the Jags.
Yeah, Saints are top 5 pass defense this year. Saints allow the second lowest passer rating to opposing quarterbacks as well. It's either a limited Trevor Lawrence or CJ Beathard.
Both scary.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. All right, with that,
you.
We'll take our last break.
No
when
Moss.
we're back, Thursday Night Football preview, we got our best bets.
Is that not a phrase?
I don't think so.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Let's take a look at our Thursday Night Football most bet player props courtesy of our friends at DraftKings. Alvin Kamara rushing yards over 52.5. Also, the under is the second most bet. So the public really conflicted on where Alvin Kamara's rushing will go. Devin Lloyd's tackles and assists over 5.5. Chris Olave receiving yards. The public likes the over. That's at 61.5. Alvin Kamara receiving yards over 29.5. Jay, what are you looking at in this game?
Going defense, Connor. I don't understand this line at all. Cam Jordan, one of the best defensive players of his generation, over 0.25 sacks is now plus 145 on DraftKings. And the reason that this is the price is because he only has 1 sack on the season. I don't care about that. Sacks that you've recorded are not predictive of future sacks. What's more predictive is pressures. And in terms of pressures, Cam Jordan has 26 this season. That's 12th in the NFL, tied with Myles Garrett. Cam Jordan, off of that, he should have 5 or 6 sacks. He's just getting unlucky against the mediocre Jags offensive line. I think he will record at least half a sack tonight.
Especially, by the way, if Trevor Lawrence is either limited or it's C.J. Beathard back there as well. Hey, guys, mine is Christian Kirk over 51.5 receiving yards. So whether it's Lawrence or C.J. Beathard under center, the fact of the matter is that he's been over this number in 4 of the past 5 games. And the one game he didn't, he was like a yard short. So I think he gets there as well, especially when you consider the Saints allow the 10th most yards per game to the slot, which is obviously where Kirk runs the majority of his routes. No Zay Jones in this game as well. Saints really good run defense. Marshawn Lattimore on the outside. So I think where the Jaguars move the ball is the middle of the field. Give me the over on Christian Kirk, 51.5 receiving yards.
I'm looking at Derek Carr's under on his passing yards. It's set at 239.5. Listen, it's great. He did this against the Texans and the Titans. He did not do this against the Patriots, Bucks, Packers, and Panthers. And I think when you look at Jacksonville's secondary, quietly very impressive.
Very good, yeah.
Tyson Campbell, one of the best corners in the NFL. I love their playmaking safeties, especially Andre Sisco. I think this number is a little high. I don't see Derek Carr lighting up that Jacksonville defense.
Who covers the line, Connor? It's Saints -2.
Ooh, I'll take Jacksonville,
Okay.
I think, in that.
Who do you like, Matthew?
It's just a tricky one because of Lawrence's injury.
Yeah, it is. There's a little bit of variance here. But you know what? Give me the Jags to cover.
Okay.
My Swaguars.
All right.
I like their defense in this game a lot.
All right, I like the Saints. I think the short week, all the traveling, Lawrence don't know what he's going to look like.
That's fair.
A little banged up. I just think that if you told me Lawrence was full go, 100%, and this was on a Sunday, then I would like the Jags. But I just think all these kind of little swirling factors favor New Orleans. I also think New Orleans are just a little bit underrated. They really should have beaten the Texans last week, missed a couple field goals, couldn't convert third downs. I think the Saints will be better, and on the short week at home, I think they will cover -2.
I thought you said 2.5.
No,
Isn't it 2.5?
two.
It's now down to 2?
Yep.
Jay, how about this?
I wanted that half point.
You don't get it.
I wanted that half point.
The most 2 popular bets being Alvin Kamara's rushing yards, of course, the over and the under. Which side are you leaning with?
The nation
on that?
is conflicted.
This is pretty rare.
What I'm surprised about is that the reception prop isn't one, just because he's been getting so much work.
Yep.
With Jamaal Williams coming back today, I think I'd prefer the rushing under just because because again, we think Williams, if they're going to bring Williams back, he'll get some work.
I think rushing under reception's over.
Yeah.
He's gotten so many targets, and I don't think that really goes away that much with Williams back.
No, I certainly don't. Here's what I will tell you, though. I think this game is ugly. I think this game is ugly.
On Thursday night, no way.
Thursday night, and that's all the reason why you got to have fantasy players in it. You got to have some bets. Because we're watching, so let's make it interesting at least. Which means, hey, it's closing time. You can't stay here. I don't care if you go home or not. But for Jay or Connor, it's me. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck. God bless. Peace out.
God bless.
Coming to you from the desk of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, it is the Jaguars traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints, who are favored by 2 points in this game. Matthew, what are you watching for them?
Well, look, first off, obviously Alvin Kamara, you're starting him. I'm at running back 7, 75 touches in 3 games since returning. We expect Jamaal Williams to be active for this game, but I think it's more about him versus Kendre Miller. Kamara's role seems fairly safe. So you're definitely starting him, Jay, but how are you looking at the rest of the Saints offensive players?
So I think Chris Olave is back to just being an automatic start. Seems like he's healthy again after going 7 for 96 against Houston. Michael Thomas, healthy again. It's just good for 6 targets every single week. He's a flex option in by Mageddon. Derek Carr, I think he can do better in standard leagues and super flex leagues naturally. You'll start him. And then Rashid Shaheed just for deeper leagues.
Yeah, I would agree with that. On the Jaguars side of the ball, obviously the big story here is Trevor Lawrence, whether he plays or not. Honestly, whether it's Trevor Lawrence at less than 100% or C.J. Beathard, I don't want the quarterback position of the Jaguars against the Saints on the road on a short week. Saints allow the second lowest passer rating per game to quarterbacks. They've been below, Lawrence, by the way, has been below 18 fantasy points in every game this season. I think you're starting Calvin Ridley as a top 20 guy, 21% target share this season as well. Christian Kirk, I really like. You can attack the slot against the Saints as well. 5 straight games with 13 or more fantasy points for him. And Evan Ingram, I think he's an automatic start given the tight end position. He's had 5 straight games with 7 or more targets. I have him as a top 5 tight end play today. ETN, of course, another obvious start.
Jaguars, Saints, Thursday night football. Good luck tonight, everyone.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.